The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, a sunny Thursday here in Southern California. A little bit later, JackO Zach Lowe, our new NBA writer, is going to come on to talk about some NBA stuff. But right now, a heated Yankees-Orioles series. JackO is actually sick. He's home. We're calling him anyway. We're bugging him. I badgered him until he came on. JackO, how are you?
Good, buddy. How you doing?
Couldn't do the complex litigation today because you're not at work. But
I'm
what a
not
trooper
in
you are.
complex litigation. No, I'm lying on my couch.
What a trooper you are, fighting through this illness to talk about Raul Ibanez. First of all,
This is a little bit like Brian's song. It's an emotional
really
one.
is.
On bedside.
It's as emotional. It's as emotional as it was to see A-Rod pretending to be happy for Raul's success last night.
Yeah, he might not win an MVP, but he may win an Oscar for that acting performance, saying all the right things, pretending he's a team guy. Yeah, definitely.
I'm sure this comparison's been made, but I'm saying it anyway. It reminded me of when the actors who don't win the Oscar or the Emmy are really happy for the person who wins.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's great that he won, but they're dying inside.
Yeah, absolutely. He did cheer pretty loudly when Ibanez hit the home run to tie it up. He was one of the first guys up on the railing there. So, I think he may have felt relief, frankly, the way he's played, and he didn't have to go up there and choke in a big spot again. So he may have felt an enormous amount of relief, actually.
I think Mariano Rivera said to him, if Ibanez goes deep here, you got to act the happiest you've ever acted in your life because they're going to show you on TV multiple times. That's the wisdom that Mariano Rivera brings to that Yankee dugout.
He is a wise man. He is very wise, yes, indeed.
It's emotional to see him in the dugout, isn't it?
Mariano, yeah, he threw out the first pitch last night, too. It was good.
You get choked up?
I did. It's good to see him out there. The place went nuts, I think. Yeah, it's good.
Is there any chance that he can come back?
No. He was contemplating it earlier in the year. The Yankees wouldn't even entertain the thought and said, no, we're shutting him down because they didn't want him to push it too much and cause long-term damage. So, no, he's done. He's not on the roster or anything, so.
Oh, he can't. They can't add him to the next round? They can't do any of that stuff?
I suppose they could, yeah, but they're not going to.
It'd be a pretty interesting move.
Yeah,
maybe if they made it to the World Series, just kind of put him on the roster to psych the other team out.
Right. Just like the Jets with Darrell Rivas. That's why they didn't put him on IR, so they could bring him back for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, the Super Bowl that they won't be playing in.
Exactly.
Walk me through your emotions with A-Rod as this series went along, leading to the to the moment.
It's not just A-Rod. I mean, A-Rod gets a lot of grief because he's A-Rod and because of his contract and what's expected of him, and I understand, and because he has a history of choking in the postseason. I understand all that, but I think there's been too much focus on A-Rod, quite frankly. Yeah, he's killing him, but he's not killing him any more than Granderson, who literally has had some of the worst swings I've ever seen outside of a Little League field. I mean, he's down 0-2 before you can blink your eye. It's just ridiculous how bad he's been. He's not even close. He doesn't even go to like a 2-2 count. He's down 0-2 and whiffs on a ball low and outside. If I've seen it once, I've seen it 25 times this series. And Swisher, who in his postseason career, he got a hit last night, I think, so he's now like 2 for 37 in his postseason career. He's 1 for 33 with runners in scoring position, and that one hit didn't even get a run, so he's killing them. They have no offense whatsoever. I mean, yeah, A-Rod stinks, and you're expecting a lot out of A-Rod, but I'm expecting a lot out of Swisher and out of Granderson and out of Cano, quite frankly, who's 2 for 12 too.
What about Mr. Mom, Mark Teixeira?
Well, Mark Teixeira, I have no hope for, and he's coming back from a calf injury, and he's actually been on base a little bit. His problem is he can't run, so he's actually gotten on base, and then he can't score on he can't score from second on a pretty good single because he just he's slow on a good day, and now that he's hurt, he's extra slow. But he's gotten on base a little bit. He's walked. He's gotten a couple hits. He hasn't had a big fly, obviously, but No, I can't kill Mr. Mom as much as I normally would. Although he did have a double play in a big spot last night. But
you made a good point about the Curtis Granderson at bats. It actually gave me flashbacks to former Red Sox star Carl Crawford and some of his
Wow.
at bats. I was actually wondering if they'd been switched and maybe like a face-off situation with Cage and Travolta.
I mean, it's just just looks so lost. I mean, he doesn't have any fight. It's not even like a good at bat where he took a couple of close pitches and they were balls and he worked the count. He goes up and I'm like, did it start off 0-2? And then he swings wildly at a ball low and outside that they know he's going to go for every single time. He hasn't even been close to contact.
He hit 43 homers this year, though.
I know, exactly. But I mean, I know he hit 220, but still, I mean, you got to put up a fight. You got to make guys throw pitches. I mean, it just kills me.
The Rangers fans right now are nodding.
Yes.
Getting Josh Hamilton flashbacks to his 8 pitches and 4 at bats in the one-game playoff.
And I can't kill Jeter because I do love him. But the game when they lost game 2, they're down 3-2 in the ninth inning. They bring in the closer Johnson, who they lit up for 5 runs the night before. So you don't know what you're going to get out of him. He comes in, he's got to be nervous. What does Jeter do? Swings at the first pitch and grounds out the short. I'm like, really? This guy gave him 5 runs the day before, or I don't know if he was on the hook for all 5, but he opened the door for 5 runs. He hasn't done anything in the postseason. They bring him in. I'm going to make him throw a strike there.
Well,
he swings at the first pitch. Just killed me.
In Jeter's defense, he was meeting Shailene Woodley for drinks at midnight.
Yeah, he had to go catch a train.
He was at the Soho House at midnight for cocktails.
And again, Jeter's played great. I can't kill Jeter, and he always generally swings at the first pitch. So I just thought you got to make him work there because now the Orioles they don't have a closer because he's shot now for this series. I would think.
Has there ever been a better regression story than Jim Johnson?
No, it's fantastic.
Like Valverde last year was good too, but this is even better because this was like, especially like coming from my ridiculous AL Keeper League background, like everybody's had Jim Johnson on their team for a couple weeks. This is not somebody who should be having 50 saves and just being lights out like this. But, House and I were talking this morning. It's all fun and games until you're in Yankee Stadium on national TV in October, right? Like the closing games, it's all good. Yeah, I got my little streak going, but it's a little different when you're in that playoff game in Yankee Stadium, I feel like.
Yeah, except that Yankee Stadium's not Yankee Stadium for most of the
time. No, but I mean,
like it was a mausoleum. But
no, I'm not talking about the crowd. I'm just talking about the
aura.
Just it's different.
Yeah, all the lights are on and watching you. Yeah.
If you're harboring any deep doubts on who you are as a pitcher, they're going to surface in a playoff game. In Yankee Stadium or, I don't know, even where St. Louis plays or whatever. Like, you're going to be like, oh, my God, am I really the closer here who has 50 straight saves?
It's a pretty amazing stat they showed last night that the Orioles didn't have a walk-off loss this year. They were the first team in 1900. That's pretty incredible. Also an excellent jinx by TBS to throw that stat up there. I enjoyed that. That made me feel good.
Well, there are a couple of things that happened last night. One, Ibanez, who just gets killed by lefties.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he comes up. Walk me through your emotions as you realize that A-Rod is being pinch hit for by Raul Ibanez.
I was happy because Ibanez came up big in the game against the Red Sox a week or two ago, which was a big game that the Yankees had to have to stay ahead of the Orioles, and that meant that they were basically guaranteed of, at worst, a one-game playoff against the Orioles for the division. So he came up big, and he's come up big a couple other times this year. So I know he has had sort of a poor second half, but I felt much better with Ibanez up than I did with A-Rod up.
And Jim Johnson's a righty.
He's a righty. It was later he hit the lefty.
It was later he hit against lefty. Yeah, I screwed up my chronology, but yeah. So in that situation, lefty versus righty. And you like having a lefty up
at Yankee Stadium with the short right field porch, so I felt good about that. And the guy I had a lot of hope for was Ichiro. I was hoping I thought Ichiro could do something there, get on, steal a base, and make it interesting there. But
he had a nice hack at it, yeah.
But he could.
You like Ichiro? I think the story of this season is you and Ichiro.
I do like Ichiro. He's scrappy. He's like an old school 1900s player. Even like the way he sort of runs up to the ball with his swing and scrappy. I like him. Yeah.
It is true. They should make him play in the uniforms that the Yankees wore in the 1910s.
Yeah, that's what it's like.
Those big knickers.
He's not a big guy. He's like a slight little guy, and like he's got that weird running swing. It's like, somebody.
He should have to wear a baseball cap when he hits.
Tinkers to Everest to Chance to Ichiro or something,
Yeah. So
I had a lot of faith in Ibanez. I was happy that because I knew like A-Rod was going to strike out. There wasn't a question in the world. I would have bet like my house on it.
yeah.
So I had no faith whatsoever in him. At least with Ibanez, I thought I had a chance. I wasn't feeling overly confident. I'd also taken a lot of NyQuil at that point, so it was a whole lot of hallucinations. And then and then he tied it up because I figured, well, they can lose here. I'll take a swig of NyQuil and I can just go to bed. Then he tied it up. I had to fight through the NyQuil haze. I was really the hero of the night to fight through the NyQuil haze to stay awake and watch the end of the game. So
I don't know what to. I mean, it would have been good either way. The A-Rod benching, just as a longtime A-Rod hater.
Right.
But for some reason, I was much more bummed out than I thought I was going to be when Ibanez hit the homer. Well,
you had just tweeted before that something about, it made this season 2.37% better or something. The Yankees losing.
Well, it wasn't just the Yankees losing. It was the A-Rod strikeouts,
explosion.
which is so enjoyable. He might be washed up, Johnny.
Oh, I don't think might be is a question. I mean, he's gone something like 70 at bats without a home run, and he just looks late. They just throw fastballs right by him. It's not a question of him getting fooled by breaking stuff. They throw it right by him, and he swings late through it, misses it.
I'm sure they'll come up with some excuse after that he's hurt or something, right? They'll come up with something.
I don't know. I don't think they can. I don't think he is hurt. I don't even know sure they can pull it.
Really?
They can pull that. I'm not sure. No, I think they just say, his timing was off because he, was coming back from injury or something, and never got his timing back or something. But I think he's shot. I don't think he has it anymore. He's been up for a long time. He's 37. He's been up since he was like 20 or something, right? I mean, he's been around a while.
When they lose it, they lose it.
Catches up to you.
I'll never forget when Jim Rice lost it. It was over.
Maybe he'll have a bounce back year like Jeter did, next year. But I wouldn't put a lot of stock in that. I mean, I would sell him for 30 cents on the dollar if I could.
I had so many.
It's not my $100 million. It's the easiest thing in the world to spend someone else's money. But if I was running the team and I wasn't going to take, I wasn't going to miss the money that much, I'd trade him for a nickel.
I would encourage the Steinbrenners to try to get Magic Johnson and A-Rod together as much as possible this winter.
In the offseason, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Really talk Magic into potentially thinking A-Rod is salvageable. I had so many mean
out to France or something. They could just talk,
Yeah. Maybe A-Rod they could tell A-Rod that to buy into some of the Starbucks that Magic owns.
Yes.
Johnny, can I just tell you, I had so many mean tweets lined up last night, and I just decided not to pull the trigger on any of them.
Nice.
Most of them had to do around yesterday being some sort of tipping point for A-Rod. Remember the movie The Program?
Yes.
Remember when Latimer, he couldn't stop the guy at the goal line and then just went into a PED frenzy after?
Right.
I think A-Rod, even though he was applauding Ibanez and pretending he was happy, he was secretly thinking, that's it. I am breaking every PED rule there is next year.
Shoot me up.
If it's a 50-game suspension, possibly, then screw it. I'll take the risk.
Get his mysterious cousin back on the line or whatever, yeah.
Yeah,
but maybe getting benched motivates him, and he tears the cover off the ball tonight. I mean, maybe he digs down deep and musters whatever last bit of spirit or will that he has and can play well tonight. But
I think A-Rod's.
I think he goes down to the well and finds that the well's empty.
I think A-Rod's going to grow a third arm out of his neck next year.
Very well may. Whatever it takes.
I think A-Rod is going to flat his Zaire and figure out how to take blood cells from animals in the wilderness there and put it right into his own blood, and he's going to grow 6 inches. I just don't think he's ready to let it go yet, Johnny.
No, that was a slap in the face for him last night, getting benched for Raul Ibanez.
What do they do, though? Don't they have 4 years left in that contract?
I think I heard this morning it was 5, unfortunately.
It's 5 years?
I think so.
Oh, my God.
It's a horror show. It's a horror show of epic proportions. Yeah, that money is they might as well set that money on fire, because at least then it would be an entertaining show.
Maybe you trade him for Carl Crawford.
Oh my God. I mean, people were so ridiculous about it. Like yesterday, somebody called a fan as I was driving home and suggested that they should put Eduardo Nunez in at DH and bat him third.
Oh,
That's how desperate Yankee fans were yesterday. I don't want to see Eduardo Nunez bat ninth, let alone third.
A-Rod really.
Crazy it was.
A-Rod looks like he is repeatedly just picking the wrong bat out of the rack.
Yeah.
He's using like some 42 ouncer that Babe Ruth used in the 1930s.
Right.
Doesn't realize it's not his bat or something. It just looks like he is
He
shot.
swings through the ball and then he like looks back at the ump and he'll like ask him like, was that a strike? And
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it was a strike.
it's
A-Rod.
sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was right down Broadway. He
Yeah.
just threw it
Actually,
right by you.
it was a strike. You just missed it. You're 3 seconds late and you're sorry. Hey,
Yeah, it's brutal. Sad.
Another thing that, if you're looking at the positives for your Yanks,
Yeah.
Kuroda was pretty good.
He was great. Their starting pitching, Sabathia was great, and Pettit was great, and he was great. They've had phenomenal starting pitching. Their bullpen is rested. The problem has been only on the offense. They just can't get a hit. Not even a clutch hit. They just can't get hits.
Listen, this isn't a reverse jinx. I honestly believe this. I think last night you killed the Orioles. I know Game 4 is tonight. We're taping this on a Thursday. That was a devastating loss. I just don't see them coming back from that.
You know,
And Jim Johnson is a Section 8, I think, at this point.
That is a devastating loss, but I was at Game 5 in 2001 when Scott Brocious hit the home run off Bin-Hung Kim against the Diamondbacks, and Yankee Stadium was like shaking to its core. Everybody singing and yelling and joyous, and there was nobody that left that place that wasn't convinced the Yankees were going to go to Arizona and win the next game and close them out. And Arizona won both games and won the World Series. So
Yeah, but you're in New York, though.
well, that's at home helps, and there's no day off. That helps, and that was definitely a bad loss for the O's last night. But Phil Hughes at Yankee Stadium giving up home runs makes me very nervous.
Here's
he
the
gives
thing.
up a lot of home runs. That makes
Here's
me
the thing,
nervous.
Johnny. Those mojo teams,
Yeah,
if you switch the mojo, you kill the team. And like the A's right now, the A's have all the mojo going. And it might just keep going. They might just win for 3 more weeks and win the World Series.
right.
The moment you pull that away from them, it's over. Because really the mojo is 75% of what was happening for the Orioles in these one-run games and what was happening with the A's really for the last 3 months. The moment you flip that, it's a different team. And that's what the Tigers have to do too. They have to figure out how can we flip the mojo on the A's. I don't think they're going to figure it out. I think the A's are going to win.
Well, the Tigers are helped by having Verlander pitch. I would take him over. I would take him in a big spot any day.
You
of the
take
week.
Verlander over the mojo? Did you watch last night?
No, I know. I know that. Well, I didn't see it live, but I did see the highlights.
You were
yes.
asleep. Yeah.
But yeah,
when Coco
'cause I
Crisp
kept
is
seeing
getting game winners, it's you
I
know
kept seeing the
something's going
score
on.
at the bottom of the screen, and I thought that was all over. That the Tigers had it locked up. So yeah, that's a big one there. But I don't know. Pitching Verlander, he could stop the mojo, I think. And yes, the O's did walk off the field dejectedly, but they're playing with house money, and they're too young to realize like what happened. I think so. I wouldn't be surprised to see them bounce back, especially against Phil Hughes.
I think Bug Showalter probably wants this series more than he's ever won anything in his whole life.
Oh, I'm sure of
Pretty
that.
much, yes.
Yeah, he's got to be tight as a drum. Although when they do the in-game interviews with him, he's pretty loosey-goosey. Something happened to him at ESPN. He's not the Buck Showalter of old. He exhibits some personality and looseness. Pretty crazy.
I think Carl Ravitch used to get him high all the time.
Maybe that's it. He's still pretty
Him
mellow.
and Kruk, they used to just smoke a nice big bowl right before they went out.
Yeah,
the studio.
that's the key.
So who would you rather play? Would you rather play the Mojo A's, who, if you play them, that will mean that they slayed Verlander?
Yeah.
That they have so much mojo that not even
They can play
Verlander.
Verlander.
Yeah, they just.
Well, I would
slayed
rather
him.
play the Tigers at this point, especially because they have to use Verlander today, so they can't pitch him in Game 1 of the ALCS. I'm a little afraid of the mojo, and I've made a million Moneyball and Billy Bean jokes, so I would hate to have that fed to me as I would by a bunch of A's fans talking about the genius of Moneyball and Billy Bean and all that. But you look at that A's roster, and I just don't understand how they're doing it.
Yeah, I don't feel like it's Moneyball. It just feels like they picked a bunch of guys off the waiver wire and got lucky.
Yeah.
All those guys were available on my AL Keeper waiver wire. Brandon Moss, all those guys. They're all on the wire.
I don't understand how the Orioles are doing it either. When I look at that lineup, I mean, I'm like, I don't get it. They got a couple guys, but I mean, I don't know. But they're doing it. They've played the Yankees even all season. They were, regular season they were 9-9. They wouldn't go away. They hung around and hung around and hung around. So it probably would be fitting if it comes down to a fifth game.
I do think there's something to the concept of you're on a team and you really have no fans whatsoever, and it's just kind of dead, and every home game's dead, and then all of a sudden you have this awesome crowd.
Yeah.
It's got to get you fired up.
Yeah.
There has to be some sort of correlation between the crowd shift and then how that affects the team.
Yeah, got to be a morale booster, I would think.
I would say the Orioles would have been better off with the 2-2-1 format than this 2-3. Because they would have lost game one in Yankee Stadium, gotten their feet wet there.
Yeah.
And then probably won game two. And then all of a sudden now they're going back to Camden for 3 and 4.
Right. They got the momentum because they're like, well, we did what we had to do. We won one at Yankee Stadium.
I like the 2-3. I thought it was effective. I think it gives the advantage to it gives a much better advantage to the higher seed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I hated the 2-3, although now I'm happy about it, but I hated it. I just don't like being the team with the better record and going on the road because, you lose 2 games in Baltimore and then you're fighting for your life coming back home.
I like that a wild card has no opportunity to clinch a series at home or the lower seed in round one. Basically, it's impossible for you to clinch a series at home, which I think is a good way to do it. And,
well, I was thinking, what they should do is there's to make it really worthwhile to win the division instead of being the wild card, really make teams fight for it. They should go to a 2-1-2. So the wild card only gets 1 game at home. It's an overwhelming advantage for the team that wins the division. Make division races more interesting. And
I'd go further.
0-5?
I think the wild card, it should be all 5. You got to take 3 in the road. That's it. Your journey, if you make it to the ALCS or NLCS, you really have to do some work.
I agreed, but they would never go for that because the owners want to make money from having a home game, so they wouldn't agree to a system where they could potentially have no home games in the postseason.
I think they should do that in hockey too. I would go with the 2-5. First two in the 8 seed, next 5.
Yeah.
In the 1 seed. They
really
should be. Baseball and hockey, it's really unclear how much home field matters. In basketball, it definitely matters.
The whole thing with baseball, up until 1969, it was just one team from each league made it, and that was why you had such a long season. It was 162 games, and the cream really rose to the top. God, I'm still babbling like I'm on NyQuil. So you got to make it worthwhile when you play that many games. Like there should be a reward for that, for being the best after 162 games.
Going back to A-Rod for a second. What do you expect from him tonight? What do you expect from him next round? Does this play to is there a possibility that he might not even play against righties in the next round?
I don't think they would ever go that far because he's still pretty good defensively at third base. They probably like him better than Chavez, although Chavez isn't bad. Or Jason Nix, but
yeah,
I don't think they're going to outright sit him. And in some ways, I keep thinking maybe it relaxes him. It took some of the pressure off of him because he's like, look, Ibanez came through. We're up 2-1. He could just sort of relax. Maybe it takes some of the heat off of him now.
Well, he's kind of in a no-win situation now because expectations are now rock bottom.
Yeah.
If he got a double in the 8th inning to break a 2-2 tie, it would be like one of the biggest hits of his career from an ovation standpoint. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think the Yankee fans,
off him.
It feels like the Yankee fans almost feel bad for him. It's not even like a hatred or like I hate this guy.
I watched the game on TV last night, but the booing was not as pronounced as I thought it would be.
No.
I thought after he went down the first time, because the crowd, he's been the topic of conversation for a couple days now, in the papers and on the radio and everything. So I figured, as soon as he didn't do anything the first time, the crowd would really be ugly. But they weren't. It wasn't. There was a smattering of boos, as they say, but it wasn't crazy. So yeah, there could be some. Just this is what he is now. We can't expect him to be the A-Rod of 10 years ago.
I would call it more of an awkward silence.
Yeah, that's it. Right.
So people are like, geez, you want to go get a drink?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Ooh.
I mean, he's been taking the pressure off other guys in the lineup because he's the focus of everything. So I think people have not noticed how awful some of the rest of the lineup has been because they're so focused on A-Rod.
I'm really surprised by how none of these teams really seem that good. You know, like even like you watch the NL games, and it just seems like the Cardinals have the best team again. I have no idea how that happened.
Right.
But it just seems like they know what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you watch the AL teams, and I'm not even sure who's supposed to be the best team. It really, whatever happened to the Rangers, I guess you could thank Ron Washington, but
yeah.
The Rangers had the most talent, and just for whatever reason couldn't put it together. But these four teams that are left, you certainly would not call any of them complete.
Oh, no, everybody has holes. No question.
I mean, you have more, I would say you have more guys on this Yankee team that makes you nervous than you've had maybe at any point in the last 15 years in a playoff situation for a team that might make the World Series, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, their lineup is just, you know, there's guys that just choke repeatedly, so there's nobody that really, like, you know, Cano scares you, I suppose, from another team's perspective, and Jeter, but, you know, Jeter's not going to hit it out of the park. But
do you trust Soriano?
Yeah, I feel good about Soriano. Robertson makes me nervous because he always seems to make it interesting, although he was great last night. But no, Soriano is okay. I mean, he's not Mariano, but nobody is. But I feel okay with him.
So what's more likely, Romney winning the election or the Yankees winning the World Series?
Romney winning the election.
More likely than the Yankees winning the World Series?
Yeah, I think so.
Would you parlay both of those?
I would, yeah. Why not? I'm all in.
All right. JackO, he's on his deathbed, but he's all in on the Romney Yankees parlay.
All right.
Good luck. Good luck tonight
to
losing, hopefully. And we will talk to you next week.
All right.
Hope you feel better.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to have a brief commercial break. Oh, yeah, you heard me. Commercial break. And then we're going to have Grantland Zach Lowe on. Going to talk a little bit of NBA right after this.
Happy birthday, Barry, to you. It's the Subway Surprise Birthday Party. And to celebrate, Subway is baking up a fresh new cookie with real cranberries, blueberries, and sweet white chips. It's the new Birthday Berry Cookie. Try it today and all September long. Subway. Eat fresh.
All right, as promised, the newest addition to the Grantland team. Zach Lowe, what's happening?
Not too much, man. Not too much. Just gearing up for the season and trying not to have my eyes fall out of my head from watching the Pistons and the Raptors play some preseason ball last night.
Oh God, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, it was pretty much a terrible mistake, and I remedied it by switching to the wonderful Connie Britton and Nashville afterwards. That felt better.
I may or may not have watched the entire Nashville episode. It wasn't bad. It really wasn't. It wasn't terrible. I might watch a second one, but I'm in on Mrs. Coach. I'm going to follow her to whatever her next 5 projects are.
She gets 3 episodes with me, which is 3 more than I give almost any other actor, and so I'll give it 2 more. But I did not like the family. The Powers Booth is the evil father. So we'll see how it goes.
It's a little shaky. I'm not going to say I loved it, but I feel like I have to support the Connie franchise. Speaking of franchises, I wrote a piece today about the Oklahoma City Thunder and why they should not even hesitate to bring James Harden back into the fold for as many years as possible. You actually wrote about this back when you were in Sports Illustrated. We can both agree that there is no way they trade him this month. I just can't see Presti doing that. I also don't think they'd risk this year's title run by trading him before the February deadline. It just seems like too dramatic of a move. How long do you see them going forward with their big 3 plus Ibaka?
I mean, I think the most likely outcome is as you say, that that they hang on to him sort of as long as possible, right? I mean, trading him now, trading him before the deadline, sort of amounts to shooting yourself in the foot before you really have to.
Yeah.
Because, as you say, what makes the situation so fascinating is that it's not like this team needs to take another step, really. I mean, they're a controversial call from almost being up 2-0 in the finals. I mean, they're a championship team right now, and there's really no way to trade him during the season without taking at least a small step back. I mean, you could argue that they could find someone who's like maybe an ace long-range shooter that doesn't quite have his ball handling that, you know, might be able to help the team almost as much as Harden because of all the ball handling that's already there. But they're so close that it would be unprecedented, I think, for a team that's really right there. And I mean, this is why you have a team, to be right there to have a chance to win a title. So I think the safe money is still to hang on to him. They give him the max, either, you know, now or in free agency, and then just sort of see what the economics look like, see how real these alleged sort of financial issues are going to be for them. As you point out, you know, the reality of those losses is hard to see from our vantage point. And also, just like, if Perkins is terrible again this year, they're just going to get rid of him. And of course, they still have to pay that money, but they don't have to pay the tax penalties that would come with it. And I think that's a much sort of, if you have that in the bag, there's no reason to act rashly now.
Right. And on top of it, you know, I'm sure a lot of this is posturing, and they're trying maybe to get him to settle for 4 years, $55 million, something like that. So they'd save $9 million over the course of the deal, with like $2 million a year, something like that. But with the tax, that ends up being $4 or $5 million. And like, I get it, but you know, I just think after what happened with Rondo in Boston, I just can't imagine any of these next wave of these potential free agent guys going for it. I mean, even look at what happened with Eric Gordon last year. You know, New Orleans was trying to get him for, I think, 4 years, 50, something like that. And he was like, nah, screw you. He ends up with 64. Harden's getting his 64. And there would be multiple teams ready to give it to him. I can't understand why he would take less than that. And I'm sure if he talked to Rondo, I think we know what Rondo would tell him, right? Rondo would say, you should hold out for the backs.
You got to get yours, yeah. I mean, there's no question, as you wrote today, and you know, I know from talking to people. I mean, you don't even have to talk to people. You just have to look at the teams that are going to get cap room, and look how few shooting guards there are in the league, and that are top notch. And he's getting the max, and that's why, you know, every year there's all this drama with restricted free agents, whether it's Hibbert or Batum or Gordon, and what's going to happen, and this and that. And like, even now, the Wizards, you know, they traded for Okafor and Ariza. You know, and if you ask them why, they'll tell you, well, you know, we need to make John Wall happy. We need to give him quality players to play with so he doesn't leave as a free agent. It's like, what do you mean leave as a free agent? Like, I'm still waiting for the star guy to take the 1 year qualifying offer, you know, when his rookie deal is up, and then become an unrestricted free agent. Like, you have power over these guys. And the most likely outcome is this sort of undramatic thing where Harden hits the open market, gets a max. It's like a ceremonial max offer from another team that you just match, and you see what happens. But yeah, he'll get the max. And you know, Rondo aside, I mean, a player is entitled. You know, players are entitled to go for the money. I mean, I would, you would, we all would.
They rope-a-doped Rondo, and I don't know if he's mad about it, or if he even thinks about it, or if he just accepts it. But you know, they did a really nice job of leaking a couple things maybe in the press to make him not look great, making it clear that they didn't love the way he had behaved all the time, and just basically they set a line, and they just weren't going to go over the line, and yet I think they totally would have gone over the line. They weren't going to lose Rondo, right?
And now he might be the best contract in the league right now.
Well, then think about, like, that summer, you had all these teams with cap space, and the thought was like, oh, Rondo's going to get lost in the shuffle with all those teams. And what we never imagined was that, you know, the same team would get three of the guys, and all of a sudden you'd have all these teams with just a crap load of cap space, like the Knicks, who had to give Amari $100 million because they literally had no other options. They would have given Rondo the maximum. They would have paid Rondo $120 million. So they wouldn't have cared. So, you know.
Yeah, you don't think about that, what the Knicks alternatives were going to be after all the chips fell and what were still available. It'd be fun to go back and reverse engineer all of that.
Yeah, we weren't thinking that way because everybody was thinking like, oh, this guy will go here and that guy will go there, and it seemed like everybody was going to get one guy. And what nobody really imagined that big three thing was a real thing. So,
no.
You know, it worked out great for Boston. They got Rondo basically for $4 million a year less than what he's worth. And especially, like, you've watched those preseason games. Rondo looks like he's going to have an MVP season. I'm not going to say he's winning it, but I think I think he's going to vault into that list of 7 or 8 guys that will be discussed. Just seems like he hasn't had a career year yet. This feels like this could be the career year. Do you agree?
I think look, I'm skeptical of anything that I see in the preseason, whether it's Stars or Sullinger or anybody. But I do think that Rondo, and we know that Boston is going to have like 2 10-game periods or 1 20-game period where they just don't look very good and they're just not bringing it, and that's how the regular season is. But I do think that Rondo now is at the point, like I haven't talked to him about this, but I think it's clear that he understands now that he has to be something resembling a first scoring option. And that he can't just like these 7-point, 13 assist, 8 rebound games are just not going to cut it when the old guys are tired against Miami in the playoffs. Like he needs to be. I think he understands. I need to be able to score 25 points if I need to, and I need to be able to score like a minimum of 15 points in a playoff game.
Well, and I also think he's figured out a little bit the whole leadership thing, in that you can't have the best player in your team also be kind of an oddball and a loner and somebody who checks in and out emotionally depending on what week it is. You just can't. And I think from what I've heard and what I've read and just listening to him, it does seem like he's embraced that a little bit. Maybe the Ray Allen thing, going and Jason Terry coming in. Jason Terry, by all accounts, Mr. Happy, Mr. Good Chemistry. Does feel like this team from a chemistry standpoint is going to be a little bit happier, although, it's early. As you said, it's preseason. I got to say, though, how dare you throw water on Jared Sullinger?
All-Star 2012.
How dare you?
The power forward crop in the Eastern Conference is weak.
Is he on the ballot? Let's make sure he's on the ballot.
I don't think he's going to make the ballot. You might have to write him in. You might have to get your Twitter followers to start the Sullinger write-in campaign, which Celtics bloggers are basically one good preseason game from starting.
I will say this, and again, you made the point. You can't get overexcited by preseason, which is why I try to watch as little preseason as possible. And after, I think it was Kedrick Brown. Oh no, Kedrick Brown was you can't get excited for Summer League. He had the one big Summer League. Somebody had a huge preseason for us, and for us, I mean the Celtics. And I can't. After that, I just vowed never to watch it. But I will say, with Sullinger, it's pretty clear that he just fits in from a basketball IQ standpoint with some of these guys. Like he knows where to go and what to do. Scalabrine was making that point in the game. I thought Scalabrine was great, by the way. But he did.
Scalabrine did compare Jeff Green to James Worthy at one point.
That was a little out of control. Listen. I can't condone that. But I thought Scalabrine made a great point about Sullinger. Like he knows what to do, and that sounds like a very basic statement, but it's not, because you'd be amazed how many basketball players just go out there and have no idea where to go, who's going where, who's doing what. Rondo's driving into the lane, and Sullinger's kind of sneaking over to a spot near the rim with his hands up because he knows Rondo's going to pass it to him. And that's something you can't teach. You either have that or you don't. I think he's going to play for the Celtics if his back holds up. Like, I do think he's going to play 20 minutes a game.
20 might be high. I don't know, but I don't think it's that high. I think, look, you're right. He knows how to play. He understands space and angles and timing, and all that stuff looks so easy when you slow it down on film and you said, why is everyone just standing around, blah blah blah. Then you get a guy like Matt Barnes comes in for the Lakers, and all of a sudden he's cutting, he's getting baskets, he's doing things, and you're like, why can't everyone else do this?
Yeah.
And it's because they just don't understand how and when to do it. It's not easy. I think he'll play because A, he's good, and B, the Celtics front line has, a lot of not question marks, but it's not stocked with guys that you want playing 30 minutes a game in the NBA. And it has one guy, KG, who I still think might be the best player on the team, who they just, the only thing that matters is getting all the old guys, especially him, healthy and rested for the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know if the Celtics have one guy other than Rondo who should play more than 30 minutes a game. It's going to be a really interesting team.
Ideally, and they're set up to make that happen. And it's like that's how the Pacers managed their minutes last year. Yeah. Not quite 30, but I don't know if they had a guy play 35 minutes a game last year, and it helped them in the playoffs. Now, they had great injury luck, like George Hill missed 15 games or something, and that was it. So, the Celtics will need a little bit of luck from the injury gods, but they've set themselves up especially once Bradley gets back, to try and do something like that.
Yeah, and I don't want to. We're going to exchange some emails about the Celts for Grantland. I don't want to step on that too much, but I will say this is going to be a very interesting Doc Rivers season. And, I've definitely done a 180 on Rivers to a large extent. Like, I do think he's one of the best coaches in the league now. I still stand by how I felt 4 or 5 years ago, but there's no question he's evolved into one of the better coaches. And this is a team that the right kind of coach could get really creative with. This is a team that could potentially play 3 guards, which Rivers has never really loved to do. This is a team that can go super small and play Pierce at power forward. There's different looks they can throw out, and I'm going to be interested to see if he's experimental versus the way he's always thought, which is why, this guy has to play here, this guy has to play here. Do you feel like he'll be a little more experimental this year?
He has to be. The roster is built for him to do that. And Miami sort of is going to force everyone's hand. If you build a team to face Miami, if your goal is to beat Miami, then you have to be able to play a lot of different ways. So he's going to have to. And, but the interesting thing about him is when they first got Green at the end of 2 seasons ago, it surprised me how often he went the total opposite way and played like super big with Pierce and Green as the shooting guard, small forward, and it never felt right to me. It felt too big and too slow and just weird. And he's interesting to see how he breaks that out again and how he does all that stuff. But yeah, enough Celtics, too much Celtics.
Well, last thing though, the fact that the Terry Ray Allen is probably lateral move. I actually like Terry a little bit more. I love Courtney Lee. If Bradley comes back healthy, that helps. Jeff Green over anybody we had at the small forward last year helps. Darko's probably better than Ryan Hollins. I'm going to say that. So, I do feel like this team's better. The problem is Pierce and Garnett are a year older, and every year they get a year older is a bad thing. You mentioned Miami. Why wouldn't they be better this year than they were last year?
They're going to be. There's no question that they're going to be. The only thing, the biggest question looming over this entire season above even the Lakers is Wade's knee. And to me, if Wade is healthy and something like 95 to 100% in the playoffs, there's something like an overwhelming favorite to me. I just think they learned a lot about themselves in the playoffs. They learned how to play. They signed guys who fit that style, and they're just going to be more comfortable in their identity going forward. And we'll see. Look, it's not a fail-safe. I think there's a very good chance that Rashard Lewis is just basically done as an NBA player, and they did nothing really to stock the big guys up in case they need some better big man minutes, and Udonis Haslem certainly looked done. But, LeBron, Wade, Bosh, and shooting is going to be enough, I think, to beat anybody.
Yeah, and I don't know what Ray's going to give him. Ray's already he mentioned a couple times his ankles doesn't sound like they're 100%. I think he's learned how to play with them. But to me, it's LeBron and just the point of his career that he's at, and to take him down would be just a mammoth effort. Oklahoma City, we can all agree they can hit a higher point than they did in the finals last year. I just didn't feel like they played that well. I'm sure they're going to play better in the same situation this time, but Miami's also going to be better. Is it just too early to decide what to think about the Lakers?
I think it's too early. We have to see how healthy they are at the end of the year, and how many minutes Nash can play in the playoffs and how they mesh and all that. But I don't think it's too early to say that, at worst, they're the third best team in the league. That they may not finish with the third best record even in the Western Conference in the regular season. Hollinger projected them fourth, which I think is totally sane and could very well happen. But you put those 4 guys on the court for heavy minutes, it's going to be really hard to beat them. I thought Howard was the second best player in the league 2 years ago and probably should have won the MVP. And people sort of have already forgotten how good he was and is. And it's not like that was a lateral move with Bynum. That's a powerhouse move.
Yeah, I when that trade happened, assuming it's the same Howard, I remember writing something like you could basically not create a player in a lab who would be a better fit for that Lakers team and the problems that they have, and his ability to cover up defensively for people and run the floor. And Doesn't
I mean,
need shots.
Oklahoma City was calling plays all throughout their playoff series that were just basically designed around the fact that, okay, we know Andrew Bynum is not coming above the foul line, so we're just going to have his guy screen for KD and get him a 17-footer, and that's going to be it over and over again.
Yeah. What are you hearing about Bynum? Because my Philly friends are saying that he showed up fat.
I haven't heard that he showed up fat, but their Philly fans are definitely worried about him, and the fact that he's already missing camp and stuff with the knee procedure is not encouraging. But look, we'll see. It's a long season, but it's hard to find people around the league who are like sold on Bynum. You know what I mean? Who are like, oh yeah, he's a hard worker, great attitude, total franchise centerpiece. Everyone is sort of in wait and see mode, which is what makes them interesting.
Yeah, I gotta say, I supported their trade. I thought they had to do it. At some point, you just have to roll the dice with a hit or miss move because they were in that no man's land. You never want to be one of those, borderline first, second round teams. Basically, what the Hawks were the last 6-7 years. At some point, you gotta swing for the fences. Speaking of the Hawks, you and I both agree on something. We both like the potential of the Hawks to be a little bit better than people might expect. There's a lot of Ewing theory potential with Joe Johnson.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of that team this year. I mean, look, it's sort of funny because we can sit here and break down the Hawks and how are the Hawks. The Hawks are going to be better than expected this year. They're sneaky good, and I just don't even think the Hawks care how good they are. The Hawks higher ups, they don't care. They got rid of Joe Johnson. That's all they care about, and they have this cap flexibility and all of this. And I mean, it would be nice if they could win around in the playoffs or whatever. But yeah, I think the Hawks are for some reason, people think Joe Johnson is so good that when that trade happened, they're like, oh well, the playoff spot just opened up in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, it was a very good trade. It accomplished something really important for both teams. For the Nets, it allowed them to keep Darren Williams, which they had to do. And you even see on Sports Illustrated on the cover this week, it's Darren Williams. What happens if they don't get Joe Johnson or Darren Williams? Who's on that Sports Illustrated cover? I don't even know. But for Atlanta, they're basically, it's a Joe Johnson by committee that they replaced him with. All people that statistically will probably get pretty close to where Joe Johnson was, right?
Especially Lou Williams, especially.
Lou Williams.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think they can be 90% of Joe Johnson. Now, he's an interesting guy because he's so big. You can do a lot of different things with him in the lineups that you can play, and they're going to be smaller, and I think defensively they're going to be vulnerable. But I bet their offense will be even better this year than it was last year. Their defense will slip. But you start with Smith and Horford. I mean, that's a real good foundation for a team. I think they're going to be fun to watch, and it'll be interesting to see, what they do during the season, if they make any moves, and how good Teague is. I mean, I just think I don't know why people just assume they're going to make the lottery, and lots of people do. I see them as a for sure playoff team.
Me too, and also a healthy Horford. Didn't have a healthy Horford during a shortened season last year, and Josh Smith in a contract year. Can't sleep on the contract year. We learned it too many times, right? If you're ever going to have your career year, it's usually going to be in a contract year.
It'll be interesting to see if the contract year pushes him to try and prove he is a good jump shooter, or pushes him to be I'm going to put away the jump shot because I know I shouldn't be doing this, and everyone wants to see me do other stuff.
Yeah. There's going to be one rogue Eastern Conference playoff team, and I'm not sure who it is. Somebody weird's getting in, and we could go through all 7 candidates. There's no way to know now, but it's going to be somebody goofy.
I think so?
Yeah, the Miami versus the 8 seed first round matchup, I think we're all going to be appalled by. I just don't know who it's going to be. Could be Milwaukee. Who knows? Could be.
I think Milwaukee is the most likely suspect. But then the flip side is who do you think is not making it out of? If you think Atlanta's a playoff team, which of the other 7 do you think is in trouble? Chicago?
Why not Indiana? Why are we so anxious to throw Indiana back in here?
Oh, Indiana's going to make the playoffs. Come on.
Would you bet your life on it?
I mean, I wouldn't bet my life on anything, but I would bet.
Answer.
I would bet significant sums of money that yes, the Pacers are going to be in the playoffs. I don't think they're as good as Pacer fans think they are, but I think they're a very, very good team.
All right, I wouldn't bet my life on them. Also,
one of the New York teams is going to be worse than we think. I don't know which one.
Oh, I like.
But
where you're
one
going.
of the New York teams will be worse than one of the New York teams will win. Well, I don't know if it'll be worse enough to not make the playoffs. So one of them is going to have a troubling season. That's my prediction.
It's interesting because, well, we both like what Brooklyn did this summer. I actually like the team they put together. I liked some of the bench guys they signed, and Joe Johnson, even at that contract, which is outrageous, still a reliable 20 a game and knows what he's doing, and is probably one of the 4 best 2 guards in the league. I mean, he's on the list, but the Knicks fans are funny. When I was talking to a Knicks fan today, he was talking about the great veteran leadership they have now. You know, Jason Kidd is one of the 3 leaders in the league, and then you get Camby, and he's a veteran presence. He's going to calm things down, and like if that's what you're hanging your hat on is your veteran leadership, that's not a good sign for your season.
Well, what I don't get about the veteran, and you're right, everyone is talking about the Knicks. The spin out of the Knicks is unbelievable. They're so good at it, and they're good at it because they just don't care. They don't care if everyone who has an IQ above 50 knows that they're spinning.
Yeah.
But they've been spinning this veteran leadership stuff for weeks, and then you look, it's like Carmelo, Amari, and Tyson Chandler are all like over 27 years old. Why do they need veteran leaders? Like why do they need these like sage old wise people to tell them how to play?
I mean, Amari he's almost 30.
Yeah.
Is he like 29?
Chandler's 30. I think Chandler just turned 30 or 29 or something. It's not like the Knicks or the Thunder where you could construct this narrative that they need Derek Fisher to do something in the locker room for whatever reason. They don't.
And by the way, you could add Gandhi as a veteran leader to that locker room, and J.R. Smith is still going to take terrible shots. You just keep stockpiling veteran leaders, and it's just not going to matter. He's going to play his game and do the things that J.R. Smith does. And
he went off the deep end in the playoffs last year, like to such a degree that I couldn't believe. And everyone was hurt, and I get that, but that was like the shots he was taking in the playoffs, like even by his standards, were outrageous.
And Carmelo is interesting because there's really 2 Carmelos. There's the Carmelo that we watch in the Olympics every 4 years, who plays a certain way. And then there's the Carmelo that's in the NBA. And nobody has ever been able to figure out why Olympic Carmelo can't become NBA Carmelo. And for me, I feel like the reason is because he respects the guys that he's playing with in the Olympics with so much that he just kind of falls in line. I think he's a follower. I don't think he's a leader. And when you put him with alpha dogs and people who are better than him, then he kind of falls into what he is, which is just a deadly 20-foot jump shooter and somebody who rebounds better than his size. But then you put him on a team like the Knicks, and he's like, oh, this is cool. I get to shoot 27 times a game and stop the ball every time it comes to me. Do you ever see him changing into Olympic Carmelo?
Maybe when he gets older and he understands that his athleticism is not such that he can sort of take people off the dribble and post up and do crazy things. But, it's amazing how quickly he walked in the door to a team that was like a decent 500 team with a guy who was averaging 25 a game as the centerpiece of that team, and just immediately became the alpha dog, like without question. No one questioned that Carmelo Anthony was all of a sudden totally in control of the entire organization, to the point that the coach has to switch agents, in order to come back, and coach number 1, D'Antoni, is out because he and Carmelo don't get along. It's like unbelievable how quickly he took over the team, and it's going to be very interesting to see how empowered Mike Woodson is this year, and how sort of, and not courageous, but how gutsy he is in terms of like, how much is he going to force Carmelo to play power forward? How can he massage that situation? How can he, make sure that the offense doesn't bog down as Carmelo just holds the ball and shoots 20-footers? That team could go a lot of different ways.
Do you feel like, because the blogosphere likes to blow things out of proportion sometimes, do you think there's almost been a little too much made of the Carmelo ball stopping? Like, what other options did that team have? They had no point guards. It's not like anybody was going to get him easy baskets.
I mean, you're right that they had a point guard and he was hurt. And once Lynn got hurt, they didn't really have any other point guards. And Carmelo in the last month of the season was like unstoppable when he stopped the ball and went one-on-one. But he was mostly playing power forward at that point. And I think it's less. I mean, he was a ball hog, and he's going to be a ball hog regardless of who the personnel is and whether they have point guards or not. he's probably going to take a lot of ill-advised shots every game. But I think the more interesting thing is, how do the Knicks have this problem where their three highest paid players, all of our front court players, and so far the evidence suggests they don't fit. Do they just sort of stubbornly keep going about it in the same way, or they do what everyone thinks they should do, and what the Knicks probably know they should do if you ask them, and bring Stoudemire off the bench as the sixth-man center and move Melo to power forward, or at least experiment with that for 15 or 20 minutes a game?
Ooh. I mean, that would be a mighty fall for Stoudemire.
Well,
He had that nice
Melo,
2-month run where he's an MVP candidate, and now he's coming off the bench.
but see, he can't. I mean, he can't play defense. He might be the worst defensive player in the whole league.
Oh, listen.
Out of guys who get lots of minutes.
I agree with you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, from what I know about Amari, I find that really hard to believe he would say that's a total 100% team move to do that.
And I
haven't seen anything from his career that would tell me that he would do that.
And that's exactly why I think Melo has been pretty vocal in camp so far about, I don't want to play power forward. I want to play my natural position. I want to play the wing and blah, blah. And everyone's hammering Melo for that because he's the one who said, I'm going to sacrifice whatever it takes for the team. Oh, but you're not willing to move up a position if that's what's best for the team. But I gun to my head, I think he understands that he can't say, well, I'm willing to play power forward 25 minutes a game because of what that means for Amare and what that will do to the chemistry of the team.
I still think if we made a list right now, most likely to get traded by February, I think Amar's in the top 3. And the only question there is who would take him and who would be desperate enough to roll the dice with that contract. The contract's not as bad as you think it is, because in your head you think 5 years, $100 million, but there's only 3 years left. So, I mean, it's still horrible. Don't get me wrong. It's probably it's in the top 3 or 4 worst contracts, but who knows? There could be the right kind of team could be desperate for it. Like if you're Golden State and you're just trying to make a splash and you're just thinking about making a splash over anything else, and you start thinking about a David Lee for Amari type thing, not inconceivable. I'm sure there's a couple other teams that would at least have meetings about should we get Amari Stoudemire. Do you think he will get traded?
I think those meetings will be over pretty fast.
You think he's untradeable? You're saying untradeable?
I don't think he's untradeable, but even like the David Lee thing you threw out, they have basically the same contract. It's like $15 million. I mean, Amari's is a little more, is $3 or $4 million more expensive, I think, at the back end. But I just don't know why. It's very hard. So like, ideally, you want a team that is like some scoring punch away from winning a championship.
Well, no, you want that, and then you want an ownership group that is in that mode of making a splash versus doing a smart basketball move. I think it's a combo.
I mean, look, I guess if you're the Warriors, you want to throw out the Warriors as a team. I guess you think, it's like David Lee is already bad as a defensive player, so it's not like Stoudemire is going to downgrade things. Why not? But I just don't think it makes any sense for a lot of teams. I mean, we could try and go down the list of
well,
teams.
There's one other team. We know who the other team is. It's the Nets.
Who are they giving up? Joe Johnson?
No, Humphreys and something else.
Yeah.
What do they care about payroll? They just traded for Joe Johnson. If you call Prokhorov, he's on some jet ski in the Himalayan mountains, like in some lake behind the Himalayan mountains that nobody knows about, and they're like, hey, we have a chance to get Amari Stoudemire for Chris Humphreys and nothing else.
I'd have to go work out the math of what else would have to be included.
Like the cap fodder.
Fodder.
I
mean, Amari's making $20 million this year.
And didn't Humphreys sign for 12?
No, I think Hump is 8. Or no, maybe you're right.
I thought he signed for 12.
I'll tell you right now. Hold on.
This is riveting podcast right now.
I'm sure. What is Chris Humphreys?
The funny thing is, you and I love this.
You're right. 12. So you could Flotsam could get it done.
Flotsam could get it done. Be an interesting one.
God, the Nets would be that would be fun just to see sort of how bad their defense would get.
Oh my God, that'd be great.
Well, that's the thing. But you can't win. I just don't think you can win the title unless you have LeBron. I just don't think you could ever win the title with a Stoudemire, Brook Lopez front line. I don't care who the other players are. I just don't think you could ever win the championship like that unless you have LeBron.
And
among current players.
You and I are both not giant Brook Lopez fans, but in general, though, I kind of like the makeup of that team, and I think that Brooklyn, playing home games in Brooklyn that first year and the energy from those home games and how excited people are going to be to have that team there, I think that is going to help them a little bit. My question, and I think both of us have written about this, is what kind of Darren Williams am I getting this year? Am I getting the guy who was one of the best 6 or 7 guys in the league 3 years ago, or am I getting the guy who I watched the last 2 years who, frankly, was not an all-star and statistically wasn't very good either for what you think he should be? Am I getting the Utah Darren Williams back, or am I getting the same guy I watched? I don't know. What do you think?
For some reason, he's like the least of my worries on the team. I don't know why. I don't know why that is. Like, I'm brainwashed into thinking I'm going to get peak Darren Williams the whole way through. I just think he's a really great player. And even last year, where he had, was struggling shooting. His shooting percentages last year were all down. Most of his numbers were down. Like, he's still on that horrible team. Like, they had like an average offense, which was great considering the personnel. They hit a lot of threes. Like, he was doing everything for them on like a team that just couldn't compete, and like made them look offensively. Now defensively is a different story. Offensively, he made that team look like an NBA team, playing both guard spots, at probably 90% effort level, if we're being honest, maybe not even. For some reason I'm not worried about him.
Last thing, you wrote a thing for the blog yesterday about your favorite league pass teams, and the criteria was exciting and good. Now, I don't know if the Cavaliers are going to be good, but I'm excited to watch them. And I'm excited to see how those pieces fit. And there's a chance they might be 500 or better if Kyrie just makes the jump. Were they honorable mention for you?
I thought about typing up an honorable mention, but then you start listing half the league.
Then you got 7 other teams, yeah.
I actually am sort of down on Cleveland in terms of how good they're going to be this year. I'm fine with what they are long term. I think Kyrie will probably end this year as one of the 15 best players in the league.
Me too.
And is just unbelievably fun to watch. But people are like penciling in the Cavs as like a sleeper 8th seed, and I just don't see that at all. I mean, they were so bad defensively last year, and Varejao helps, but like it reminds me of the Rockets discussion where it's like, and obviously the Rockets have no one on Kyrie's level, but there are just too many young guys. We have no idea how good they are that are going to get huge minutes. And some of them are going to flop, and some of them are going to have like entire 30-game stretches where they're just awful. And long-term, everything is fine. I think they should stick to what they're doing with all the draft picks and not try and sort of do something, shake up the foundation or whatever by adding salary this year. But I don't see them as a 500 team.
If I was going to start an office poll on the date that you write the article about how the Cavs screwed up those 2 lottery picks in correlation to one another and what could have happened instead, would that be in the next 12 months or after, and then 12 months after that?
I mean, you know me, I'm patient, and I don't like to rush. I don't like to rush to conclusions. I like to, and I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I need to see something from Tristan Thompson this year for sure. Waiters. Look, I don't know how any of these guys in the top 5 other than Davis are really going to play this year, but Waiters I'll see. But I need to see, Tristan Thompson's a big guy. They didn't take Valanciunas, who I think will be a good player. We got to see something from him this year.
So I like how you pronounce that guy's name correctly. I'm not even going to try. But the guy who's on Toronto is Lithuanian, who I thought, it seems like they should have taken a year ago. And had they taken him, then they would have taken Thomas Robinson in the last draft. So the questions will be, is the Lithuanian guy good or not, which we'll find out on Toronto. Is Tristan Thompson going to show anything this year? And then Robinson versus Waiters. If Robinson comes out of the gate good on the Kings, then yeah, that's not going to be good. But who knows with the Kings?
Who knows with the Kings, especially if they're serious about playing him at small forward, which I guess they've been tinkering with during the preseason. That seems like a recipe for disaster, but we'll see. I actually like Keith Smart. I think Keith Smart's a good coach. The Kings are just one of those teams where it's like, are these players any good? Like, is Tyreek Evans any good? I mean, I know he's flashy and he does all these fun things, but like, does he help you actually win basketball games? Does Marcus Thornton help you win basketball games? He scores a lot of points, makes $8 million a year. Does he help you win games? Those are the only questions that matter for the Kings this year.
Our evidence so far is no for both questions. Yeah, last thing, you talk about the exciting League Pass teams. I was on the phone with House today. House is coming out to tape our over-unders pod, and he's coming the weekend after this one, and we're on the phone, and we're like, oh, I wonder if there's an LA game, like an exhibition game. We check. Sunday night was Lakers-Kings, and then Monday is Clippers-Warriors. I couldn't think of two teams I'd want to see more in the preseason, just randomly, than the Kings and the Warriors with their goofy rosters, right? I mean, we'll have so much to talk about for 3 hours, both games. I was pumped.
That's gonna be fun. I think the Warriors are I like the Warriors. I think they're gonna be good this year. But I'm admittedly an Andrew Bogut huge
You're
Andrew
Kool-Aid
Bogut
drinker.
guy. I'm an Andrew Bogut Kool-Aid drinker. I think the Warriors roster, like, on paper, and I hate the phrase on paper, but like, you can see the theory that went into building that roster. It looks beautiful on paper. Now, I don't know if it looks like a real championship threat even in the next 3 years, but it looks fun and it makes sense. The Kings are just like, I have no idea if these guys are
It's a fantasy team. Yeah, it's just 12 guys randomly thrown together. The Warriors, I fear for their fans because, as you said, on paper it looks pretty good. And you could stare at that starting five for a while and start to get excited. You'd be like, oh, these guys all actually fit as a unit. This is going to be great. And then, the season starts. Bogut can't bend his arm. David Lee comes down with some sort of weird infection. Stephen Curry can't. His ankles aren't working. Harrison Barnes, all of a sudden the articles are about how he needs to assert himself more. You can kind of see where it's going with them. But there's still the chance that it could go the other way, and it could be a feel-good story. I think it would be more fun for them to be good, just in general from an interest standpoint. And so there is going to be a Western spot open, possibly. It feels like maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that race for the 8th spot is going to be, I think I think maybe is a good answer. We have to see how Dallas is. I mean, certainly if this Dirk knee thing turns out to be a thing, they become a lottery team fast, and they have a lot of interesting trade assets fast. If that turns out to be like Dirk misses 20 games, suddenly they're in huge trouble.
Dallas will be, they will cut the cord if they feel like they're not going to make the playoffs. If there's ever a team that would be smart enough to just say, screw this, we're out of here, we're folding the hand.
And just
Dallas.
full of expiring contracts and guys on like weirdly affordable contracts, so we'll see.
I don't like what they did, but we're not allowed to say much more because the DallasBasketball.com people come after us with some crazy vendetta. You can't say anything bad about the Mavericks.
I like what they did after losing out on D. Will. I think they did a really nice job building the team on the fly. I agree. I just sort of don't, like the Hawks, I sort of don't think it really matters. Although it matters in the sense that you have an absolute historically great player who is going to single-handedly, I mean, you put this Dirk, a coaching staff, and like moderate talent is a playoff team every single year, but he's getting old.
Well, you just made the point. What matters is Dirk won the title, and then they basically lost the next 2 years for him, and they didn't give him a totally fair chance to compete. And not 100% their fault because there was no way to know that Odom was going to be that much of a catastrophe. But the bottom line is, it is what it is. You only have so many good years. And
see, I think. Sorry to interrupt you. I think that Cuban is going to get slammed if they're bad again this year. And they're bad, not bad, but if they're just sort of like playoff also-ran for the next 2 years, he's going to get slammed. And I don't think it will be fair. I think if you look at that 2011 team, I just think, aside from even Chandler, I just think they were a perfect one-year team where everything went right and they were old and guys were going to get overpaid in free agency. I think if you really thought about it, you can go back and sort of defend what he tried to do. You can see the ideas there are right. And just it hasn't turned out yet, but I don't think that's good. He's going to get slammed with 2020 hindsight that I don't think will be fair.
Well, here's the thing, though. It was a 50-50 gamble, basically. And, I think what Houston did, it was even less 50-50. The odds were even more against them on getting anybody. But he was hoping, that he could get Dwight Howard or Darren Williams, and he threw away the title defense. Now, they probably wouldn't have beaten Miami, so I don't know if he threw away the title, but here's my issue. If you re-sign Chandler and he would have taken a little less to stay, doesn't that give you a better chance to get one of those pieces like Dwight Howard? It's like I feel like they gave away an asset when they didn't have to. That was my issue with it.
I guess it gives you a better chance, but you start adding up the math of guys who are on the books, like Marion plus Dirk plus Chandler. You're already in hot water in terms of can you get a max free agent? It was going to be tight if you threw all those salaries together. That's something like up to $45 million already, just those three guys, without even filling out the rest of the roster. So that's the problem, right? I mean, you have these carryover contracts from the last CBA that look ridiculous now. Like, nobody makes $22 million anymore except for like four guys. And now their contracts are sort of disproportionately even bigger. And Dirk is one of those guys. It's just a huge contract. He's worth every penny of it, but it makes it hard to build a team if you have even like one more expensive guy.
Yeah, we disagree on this one. I would have re-signed Chandler. Here's the thing. You win a title, it's like a sacred thing, you know? And I feel like you owe it to the fans. And this is, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. This is just how I personally feel. You win a title and you owe it to that group of guys and the fans who supported that team to try to win again, unless it would be just ridiculous to do so. And I don't think it was ridiculous for them to re-sign Chandler. I mean, they could have basically done everything else they did, but the Chandler thing was the piece that I just didn't agree with. They could have amnestied Haywood a year ago and re-signed Chandler. And instead, I really think part of it was they made the evaluation that Haywood was better than he was. And he's just not. He's not good. And they
I hope they didn't make. I hope they did. I hope Brendan Haywood factored in nothing in their decision making with Chandler. I hope not.
No, I think he did, though. I really feel like they felt that him and Jan Mahimny were going to make up for Chandler and that they weren't going to miss him. And I think that was a big part of the decision they made. And in that case, they were wrong. And now if you're looking at, if you had Chandler for 3 years, $38 million left, that's a good contract for him. That guy started in the Olympic Games. You know, he's one of the three best centers in basketball, and they walked away from it. So I don't know.
You don't have to sell me on Chandler. You don't have to sell me. I think he's one of the 20 best players in the league.
Yeah. So they decided not to bring him back. Like, I don't see how that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you have one of the 20 best players in the league, I guess, you know, if you value him that way, then you think, well, we already have a star. This is a star. We don't need to hold out for a future star. I see what you're saying. I'd have to go back and sort of extrapolate the math years in advance in terms of the salaries and see what.
I don't know if they ever.
I don't think it was a no-brainer, but I think it's an interesting decision that, you know, you could see what they were trying to do.
Yeah, and I think from day one they decided to do what they, you know, I think they thought they rode Chandler as far as they could go, and then that was it. And you know, I mean, even like he was talking about it when they were all together at the ESPYs, and Cuban was kind of like ducking him a little bit, and he knew then that he wasn't coming back. So anyway, that's a story for another time. Zach Lowe, we love having you on Grantland. You've written Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You're gonna be writing a lot more for us, and hopefully start doing some podcasts over at the Grantland Network. Correct?
Hopefully, yeah. We got to get on that horse.
Yeah. All right. We love what you're doing.
Up.
We love having you. I can't wait to send you Jared Sullinger emails when he scores 30 points on opening night. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Bill.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.